and welcome to this video focusing on Henry VIII's foreign policy up to 1529. So firstly, the multiple wars with France. In 1512, Henry invaded France with Ferdinand of Spain. However, once Ferdinand achieved his goals in France, he abandoned Henry and his troops, and it was a big failure. Then in 1513, Henry invaded France with Maximilian, the Holy Roman Emperor, and Thomas Wolsey organised 30,000 troops in the Battle of the Spurs, and Terouanne was captured for English control. And Henry got his glory that he wanted at the Battle of the Spurs. And they also captured Tournai. However, this was all for Maximilian's benefit, so it shows that in 1512 and 1513, Henry was really only working for the benefit of other leaders, and England was always secondary. In 1514, peace was made with France, and this involved England keeping Tournai, another French pension, and Henry's sister Mary marrying King Louis of France. In 1522, England once again invaded France and actually got within 50 miles of Paris, but ultimately this invasion failed because there was a lot less support from the French nobility than Henry had expected, and Charles, the Holy Roman Emperor, who Henry relied on for support, lost interest quite quickly. Finally, the amicable grant was Henry's attempt at raising taxes to fund war with France, but this ultimately failed because people just refused because it was extortionate, similar to the tax rebellions that Henry VII faced in his reign. So now moving on to the leaders that Henry dealt with. Francois I was King of France in 1515, and he immediately helped Mary, Henry's sister, marry the Earl of Suffolk. Now Mary was able to do that because Louis died about a year after marrying her. He went to the Field of the Cloth of Gold in 1520. Now this was Henry VIII's massive show-off event. It was really just feeding his ego and wanted to try and make him feel like he was on the same level with Francois, but he really wasn't. And nothing concrete was achieved at all. It was just a massive 2-week party with fountains of wine and a fake castle tent. Like, it was just a big chance for Henry VIII to show off and seem like he was more powerful than he was. In 1525 to 27, the Treaty of Moore and Treaty of Westminster tried to solidify friendship between France, and in 1527 they actually agreed to invade the Holy Roman Empire together under the Treaty of Amiens. So overall, Henry and Francois got along quite well, I guess. They were constantly trying to one-up each other and compete against each other, and they were both brand new, young kings. Now moving on to Scotland, perhaps the greatest achievement of Henry VIII's reign took place at the Battle of Flodden Field in 1513, and Henry wasn't even there. King James IV was killed by the Earl of Surrey, and so Margaret, Henry VIII's sister, was placed as Regent of Scotland. Now this was a great military victory because the threat of Scottish war had finally been neutralised, but Henry VIII had literally nothing to do with it, but he still took full credit. Another high point of Henry VIII's reign was the Treaty of London 1518. Now this was an alliance of 20 Christian countries against the Ottoman Empire, and it was an agreement that they would all be peaceful with each other and would send aid if anyone became under attack. Now, just like Flodden Field, Henry was not responsible for this success, but he still took full credit. The Treaty of London was organised by Thomas Wolsey, and it served to make Henry seem like he was some important peace negotiator of Europe, when in reality it was all down to Wolsey. Henry needed this treaty because he could not afford war with Europe, but it's arguable that this treaty was doomed to fail because war was inevitable as the Holy Roman Empire completely surrounded France, so the success that came with the Treaty of London was always going to be short-term. And the Treaty of London was basically just a precursor to the more important League of Cognac, signed a few years later against the Holy Roman Empire, and Henry VIII reluctantly joined in 1526. In 1516, along came another young and powerful leader, Charles V. He was King of Burgundy and Spain, and in 1519 became Holy Roman Emperor, so he was the most powerful person in Europe, and he was also very young, just like Henry and Francois. In 1521, the Treaty of Bruges was signed between Charles and Henry, and this was an agreement that they would invade France together, and Charles would supplement the French pension that Henry would lose. Also, Charles would marry Henry's daughter Mary. Then in 1525, at the Battle of Pavia, Charles captured Francois, And in 1527, at the sack of Rome, Charles had complete control of the Pope, so he was just growing even more powerful. Then in 1529, the Treaty of Cambrai between Charles and Francois was basically peace with France, so England had been completely forgotten and sidelined. So overall, Charles only really used England when it would be beneficial to him, and he ended up with so much more power than England or Henry VIII could ever hope to have, so it was never going to be a level playing field.